Viewer discretion is advised.
If Tom Benson looks like a used car salesman, that's basically what he is, as he owns a lot of dealerships in the Texas and Louisiana area. He also owns the Saints, which he threatened to move multiple times to San Antonio, and bought the Pelicans in 2012 after David Stern agreed to rig the draft lottery so he could get Anthony Davis. Rigged NBA draft lottery, the New Orleans Pelicans used to be the Hornets, and in 1997 the Hornets drafted a then high school kid and traded him to the Lakers for Vlade Dottie. We likes to party. That teenager was Kobe Bryant. From there, you spiraled into a display of misery. You let Alonzo Mourning go to the Heat, and then the NBA had to end up buying your ass and selling you to a Louisiana billionaire under the condition that he would get the top draft pick, and watch you guys waste the Unibrow's career in the big sleazy. Dear Anthony Davis, your team may be on the up and up, and you are a beast. We are collectively waiting out the next 3 years until you are a UFA, and we can give you more money. Sign, the rest of the NBA, including the Warriors. Remember when Chris Paul was a Hornet and they had decent talent and they were in the playoffs with a chance to even their series on their home floor against the Nuggets? Well, if you are a Pelicans fan, you probably are trying to forget, just like we all want to forget, that the prequels happened. 7 Nuggets reached double digits in points, led by Melo's 26, and Chris Paul was terrible. In 36 minutes, he shot 2 of 7, had 6 turnovers, and totaled 4 points. Even Jar Jar Binks thinks that sucks.
Musical Jar Jar Binks.
So this is what he looks like now. Pierre used to look like this. Dear God, Pierre has invaded your nightmares and demands his sacrifice. Your firstborn son and $300 for courtside seats. The worst part is, this isn't even their creepiest mascot, as the Pelicans used to use this monstrosity, the King Cake Baby. Everyone run! Kill it with fire! Kill it with fire! I guess Checkers and Rallies lost the bidding war to name this arena, as the Smoothie King Center sounds like a great place to get whatever substance you want, blended with ice and yogurt, and watch some NBA action. I wish I could tell you more about this arena, but do you really want me to take this seriously when the building is named the Smoothie King Center? All I can think of is those Squatty Potty commercials and rainbow flavored diarrhea. I'm done. I'm done. It's off to Walmart to go people watch. In 2011, the struggling Hornets needed capital, and Tom Benson provided it, bailing out George Shinn and saving the franchise. They immediately got the top pick in the untelevised lottery selection. Coincidence? Was this a backdoor deal? We'll never know, but it does smell like the tide going out on the bayou. Congrats, you lucked into one of the best prospects of his generation as soon as you managed to piss off the last one. The worst part about the unibrow leaving you isn't just that, it was you were dog shit with him. Now Zion fell into your lap and you had to wait nearly half the season for his gumbo-infused knee to take the court, and as soon as he shows promise, the league gets shut down. Just wait until it's his turn to leave. You need to sell, move out, or both. New Orleans Pelicans. Here's another team owned by Gail Benson, but it may be forced to relocate before she passes. It's no secret the franchise has struggled in the ironically named Big Easy since it arrived. However, team officials have vehemently denied that the team ever plans on moving. Apparently, there is frequent interest from buyers. But the problem lies again in that nobody local has the means or desire to buy the team. A smart business person would purchase them and then move the team to Seattle or Las Vegas. Even worse, the team's lease expires next year, and like we said before, nobody knows when Gail Benson will do the same. To be fair to the NBA, there just aren't many bad arenas in the entire league. Most have been upgraded or replaced, with Sacramento avoiding being on this list when they got rid of the sleep train and showered everyone with the Golden One Center. So what's bad about the Smoothie King Center? Well, aside from its hilariously crass name, its architecture and exterior are remarkably bland, kind of like a 90s shopping mall bathroom, if that makes any sense. Built in 1999, it actually held up better than the Superdome did during Hurricane Katrina. arena, but compared to other NBA arenas, it's simply bland, which is okay. It's New Orleans, the city that relies on the surrounding area to be the draw, not the arena itself. And if you've been to New Orleans, the Smoothie King Center isn't really where all the action is. Earlier in 2023, there were incidents of several cars being broke into outside the arena during games, which is bad, and in 2019, a security guard was fired after a young boy ran onto the court, embarrassingly logging more minutes than Zion Williamson. Again, not a terrible arena, but one of the worst in major sports.
Pierre the Pelican, New Orleans. Looks pretty cool, but that wasn't always the case. Remember back when it first started and Pierre looked like something out of a horror movie? A pretty good mix of intimidating and fan-friendly. Overall, a pretty good job. Rating, 8 out of 10. New Orleans Pelicans, Chris Paul. It was basically a toss-up between CP3 and Anthony Davis, but I went with CP3 to make him the only player to be named the best ever for 2 different franchises. CP3 spent 6 years with the franchise and had 2 of the greatest seasons point guard has ever had in 2008 and 2009. In 2008, he came within 1 game of the conference finals, and that would be the only playoff series win the team had during his tenure before he demanded a trade. Regardless of how he left, he elevated the franchise to respectability during his tenure there, much like how he would later do with the Clippers. Man, I tell you, the CP3 guy is pretty good if you ask me. Injury prone, but still good. New Orleans Pelicans, Austin Rivers. Rivers has gone on to have a long NBA career as a 3-and-D type role player on some contending teams, but there's no way around the fact that his tenure with New Orleans was a disaster. He was taken 10th overall in 2012 and lasted just 2.5 seasons with New Orleans before being traded to his dad's team in LA. New Orleans, for the most part, has done a pretty good job with their top picks, so even though Rivers isn't the worst player in the world, he's the unfortunate recipient of this honor. New Orleans Pelicans, blowing a 3-2 lead in the 2008 Western Conference semifinals and losing Game 7 at home. The 2008 New Orleans Hornets, as they were called then, were easily the best team in franchise history, and it was also Chris Paul's breakout season where he arguably should have won MVP. After easily dispatching the Mavericks in the first round, the Hornets went up 2-0 on the defending champion Spurs with relative ease, and Chris Paul was dominating. And after another blowout win in Game 5 at home to go up 3-2, it looked as though Chris Paul was going to make his first ever conference finals in just his 3rd season, but that was not the case. The Spurs won in a blowout in Game 6, and with Game 7 in New Orleans, the Spurs won a grind-out game 91-82, relatively easily. Nobody would really know it at the time, but this would be the first of many playoff chokes by Chris Paul. Paul didn't even make his first conference finals until 10 years after this series. New Orleans Pelicans, Zion Williamson. This pains me to say as a massive Zion fan who believed when he came out of Duke that he had the potential to be a top 10 player ever by the time his career was over. And I wasn't completely wrong because when he's been on the court, he has been legendarily good. The problem is that in 4 seasons, he's only played in 114 games. It doesn't matter how good you are if you're missing all of or the majority of every season. I still believe Zion can be a Hall of Famer someday, but if next season is more of the same, I think I'll finally have to give up that dream. New Orleans Pelicans, Chris Paul, 2008. Another franchise that has never made a conference finals appearance, but the closest they came to making one came in 2008 when a young Chris Paul put up a great postseason, averaging 24 points, 11 assists, and 2 steals a game and over 50% shooting, and going to Game 7 in the second round. Although in typical Chris Paul fashion, his team did blow a 3-2 lead, but at the time, nobody knew how Paul's career would turn out, so this was just, oh, he'll get him next year. Nevertheless, Paul's best performance of the postseason came in Game 2 of the 2008 first round versus Dallas, where he put up 32 points and 17 assists on 63% shooting. Just a monster. New Orleans Pelicans, Solomon Hill. This dirty piece of shit played 3 years in New Orleans, appearing in 136 games, starting 87 of them, and he averaged 5.8 points per game and 1.6 assists per game on 38% shooting, in between diving at players' ankles to ruin their season. God, I can't tell you how much I hate this bastard. What is he good at? What did he do? He did nothing well. And it wasn't like he was 7 foot or super tall or anything to justify lasting so long in the league. God, it just pisses me off. Hearing his name for me is like stepping in water with a sock on. Good riddance to this talentless, ankle-hunting cockmunch. New Orleans Pelicans. For a franchise that has never made it beyond the second round despite having Chris Paul and Anthony Davis at their best, Pelicans fans can be very arrogant. Here's a newsflash. You didn't win the Anthony Davis trade, and the only way you'll ever win the Anthony Davis trade is if you win 2 titles with Brandon Ingram. Bragging about picks you swapped from the Lakers that you haven't won a playoff series with yet is hilarious. Have some fucking shame. None of this will even matter if Zion doesn't reach his legendary potential, which at this point it looks like he most likely will.